Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Attendance Bias, to our midweek recap of the Phish 7-show MSG run. Today, we have a very special guest with us to review the midweek part, the Tuesday, August 1st, and Wednesday, August 2nd segment of the run, shows 4 and 5. We are down to having 2 left. So thank you for coming back to listen. For those regular listeners of Attendance Bias, this episode will be a little bit different than previous ones. There won't be basically any edits. The opening music that you heard is pretty much the only thing that I add. Today is just a fun conversation, an overview of the last 2 nights. And I've already taken up too much time before introducing today's guest. You know him, you love him, you've heard him. Ryan Storm, first time on Attendance Bias. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Brian. Thank you for having me on today. Really excited to be on Attendance Bias finally. And I look forward to having you on my podcast and doing a full Attendance Bias episode pretty soon.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll make it happen. Since you mentioned it, Ryan, give our listeners an overview where they can find you, where they can hear you, and what you love talking about.
Yeah, thank you. So for those who don't know, I host 3 podcasts, one about Phish, one about Goose, one about Snarky Puppy. So if you're into any of those, you can check them all out. If you go to thisisstormsound.com, that's where you can find all of my stuff. I do a lot of writing. I write about every concert I go to. You can subscribe to my blog at ryanstorm.substack.com. Follow me on social media at ry_storm. But I like to talk a lot about the music that I like, if that wasn't apparent already.
You remind me of myself at a certain age, kind of a young William Miller from Almost Famous, who I kind of modeled myself after. The only difference is I was getting into music journalism and writing at a time when newspapers were all going down and out of business. So right. You're kind of the William Miller of the digital age, as I see it. Even the phrase digital age is probably outdated by now. But anyway, we're just here to talk about some Phish. We are right in the middle, smack dab middle of the mini Baker's Dozen. Let me ask, have you come up with any sort of nickname or any sort of idea for what to call this 7-show run?
The 2023 MSG run.
Hope you didn't hurt yourself.
I got nothing. There's no discernible theme, really. It's just Phish playing great shows. So,
Yeah, I agree. I've started to call it the future, because I think this is the way it's going to be more frequently as Phish and as we move forward. Just fewer venues, longer runs at single venues. And, you go to the mountain doesn't come to you from now on. I don't think this is going to be the way, but I think we're moving toward this model, in my opinion. That's just my speculation and nothing else. So, Ryan, you are down for all 7 shows?
Yes, correct.
All right. And you are down from Canada, yes?
Yeah, from Toronto. Yeah. So okay. Came down last week, caught J-Rad on Thursday at Pier 17, which was awesome. And then I'm here for the whole run. And I'm out of here at 6 a.m. on Sunday.
Geez, safe travels.
Thank you.
So in an elevator pitch, 2 minutes, what was your impression of the first 3 shows?
The band sounds incredible. The Type 1 playing is on a level that we haven't heard since at least 2021, maybe even better than that. I haven't done a ton of comparing yet. Trey sounds very well rehearsed. The band is clicking on every level. And so, starting with night 1, immediately they came out the gate and just threw down an incredible show, 30-minute Fuego on Saturday. So while there have been some moments throughout the run, which we'll talk about in the last 2 shows, where kind of the flow has been lost a little bit, the band hasn't lost their flow. It just, in terms of song selection and jamming, sometimes it's been a little bit less than amazing, but they just sound amazing. That's the main point about this run so far. Phish sounds amazing.
I agree overall, and I'm one to pick it out warts and all. I'm certainly a huge fan. Obviously, I wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't, but right. I like to also say, speak my piece. And I have very few nits to pick about those first 3 shows, but these middle 2, Tuesday and Wednesday. All right. So Let me ask, how going into Tuesday, how are you holding up from the 3-night run of the weekend? Were you just eager to go back for more? Did you need that day of rest? How are you doing?
The day of rest was nice, but also, I was like, on Monday night, I was like, what am I doing not seeing Phish tonight? This is weird. And so getting back on Tuesday, it was like, seeing people again, like, how was your day off, whatever. And this is my first time doing a run like this where there's a day off or multiple days off in the middle. I'd done a couple of 4-night MSG runs before, but nothing, this long, obviously. And so it was interesting to have that day off, and then but I found that I was able to just get right back into the mindset. Woke up Tuesday morning and I was like, Phish tonight, we're back.
And let me ask, this will be the last thing I ask about you coming here as a tourist, because I live in New York City, so I always see it as to me, it's just, I got to go get my groceries today. I got to re-up. What did you do on the day off?
I saw a couple of friends who live in the city who I haven't seen in a really long time. But I found that I don't really do a ton of touristy stuff during a run. Which some people might be like, what, you're in New York and you're not doing touristy stuff. I've been to New York a couple of times and I've done the touristy stuff. And I feel like when I'm in town for a Phish run, I want to focus on, first of all, staying in the best possible shape. So if I go to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm not getting up at 7:30 to go do touristy stuff all day. But I want to be it, like the Phish shows are my priority, right? So
Sure.
Everything else is kind of secondary to that. So I want to make sure I'm in top form.
Right. You can see the Empire State Building from anywhere, so it's not the biggest. Yeah, Phish is only in for a number of days. But let's look at it. So Tuesday, the 1st of August, widely circulated and well known that it's Jerry Garcia's birthday. Maybe, maybe not. There were some acknowledgments to that. Maybe. We'll see.
Maybe.
Set one was Ghost, Reba, Funky Bitch, Timber Ho. The debut of Broken into Pieces, Wolfman's Brother, and closing with I Am the Walrus. I was slayed by Sunday night's first set, the 1995, I'll call it first set.
Oof.
I don't say wowee that often because I'm a 40-year-old man, but I did say it that Sunday at set break, and I said it on Tuesday at set break. I was very impressed.
Yeah. Yeah, same. When they open with Ghost, you get these early first set Ghosts a lot that are 10 to 12 minutes. Like they make that Bliss jam turn and then kind of return home, like nothing crazy, nice solid jam. This one was above that. This was a step up. 17-minute Ghost opener, really awesome jam. Still went to that Blissy space, but as they've been doing all summer, they really took their time to expand the motif and the theme and really, really patiently build that peak, which was absolutely amazing. This set was so good. One of the best Rebas in years, just in terms of execution, the jam, Trey's patience during the jam. He brought it to like 3 extra peaks. I feel like after the first time he could have signaled Fishman to end it, which was so cool. Timber Jerry always amazes me at how much ground it covers in under 10 minutes because it rarely goes over 10 minutes these days, but it goes deep type 2 for like 5, it's really, really cool to hear the kind of spaces they cover there. Broken into Pieces, I thought was cool, definitely kind of the low point of the set in terms of energy. But I think it's a good song. It had some, it debuted nicely with the trio in June in Colorado. But so I'm looking forward to seeing if this sticks in the Phish repertoire, if it's a one-off, what ends up happening here. And then the Wolfman's was my highlight of the night.
Yeah,
just absolutely effortless shift into type 2 here. Another 17-minute jam, probably second best Wolfman's of the modern era behind 226-22. It was just like incredible. Just them moving so smoothly from section to section. Obviously, the return to the song at the end was a little bit less smooth, but it was still phenomenal. And I Am the Walrus was just, so much fun. And Trey Page mashing every single sample in his arsenal is always a good time.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said, although I do have some different things to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
But your overall attitude, I'm there with you. especially with Ghost, excuse me, with Ghost, we've gotten into this habit, and when I say we, I mean collectively Phish and the audience, but I guess mostly Phish, of opening with like what you said, like a 5 or 6 minute song, like they did early with like Evening Song. And then
Yeah.
the second song is where you can expect a little bit more of an extended piece. And usually that second extended piece is Wolfman's Brother, Back on the Train, songs like that, where they could stay within type one, show their stuff, but not really get deep. But when they opened, like what you said, with a 17-minute Ghost, I thought back to Sunday night. I think it was Sunday night where Trey said, the rules, are there rules? And the
Right.
rules are
Yeah.
out the window.
After Lama.
And that's the thing, we've been doing this for so long, and they've been doing this for so long. It's like, when you come to expect something and they break from it, that's what keeps you coming back. This idea that you think you know, but you really don't know. You don't know anything.
Yeah.
And that's what really hits me. On my previous recap with the guys from the Stub Me Down podcast, I made a big deal about this on Theme from the Bottom.
Right.
That it's this song that I've been seeing for 20, however many years. And I think I know it. Like, it's memorized, etched into my DNA. But the way they played it on that night, it's like it's like I was hearing it for the first time.
Mhm.
And it's why I keep coming back. And I felt similarly in terms of setlist construction when Ghost opened and didn't stop. So, but I agree with you when it comes to technical proficiency and the direction of the jam with Ghost and Reba. I thought those are both exemplary versions of this era, especially. Funky Bitch kind of took that place of the two-hole song, except it was played third, where it was just a good excuse to let loose and play. Timber went a little wild. I really liked it. And of course, I wrote down on my notes the lyrical references of Come On Jerry and My Old Jerry, where, you could hear a little bit extra cheering. Maybe. What's your take? Was that a nod to Jerry Garcia's birthday, or was it just a coincidence?
It could be either one. I feel like at this point, Phish may have done that, or it may have just been like, let's play Timber.
It doesn't matter in the end. I don't know why I'm asking.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it was a good chugging along rhythm. It built very gradually. This wasn't like a straight up peak. It was a very slow and steady build that I really enjoyed. Like, not a big time drive, but the energy did increase. Broken into Pieces was finally a time for everyone to take a break. I enjoyed it. Wolfman's Brother, like you said, to me was the highlight of the set. And I had this thought, and I wrote it down during Wolfman's. Is it weird that we are in a spot where now we can expect type 2 jams in more songs than not?
Yeah, it's been that way since 2021, really. But it's kind of been that way since the Baker's Dozen. When they started doing these things with stuff like Sample, whatever. And then it kind of took a step back in 2018 and 19. You didn't see new songs, jamming out. But then like fall 2021 kind of opened the floodgates. And you see things in 2022, like consistently jammed samples, a jammed out Character Zero, from Orange Beach. Like they don't care anymore. Or like what they did with Free at Blossom, how they jammed out the end of it instead of the middle. They're at the point in their career, they're 40 years in. And yeah, they can play Tweezer, they can play, Down with Disease, whatever. But they're now looking at a song like Sample in a Jar, which we'll talk about when we get to the second set. But we're now looking at a song like Sample in a Jar, and they're being like, wonder what would happen if we jammed this out, because we've never done that before, in a big way. So might be a fresh avenue for them in terms of improvisation, because again, they can play the shit out of a 25-minute Tweezer any day of the week, but for them, it might feel more unique and ideas may come more naturally jamming out a new song.
Yeah, I agree. And Wolfman's Brother isn't necessarily a new jam vehicle, but since like 97 and 98, it really hasn't gotten that treatment like it did on this Tuesday. I was moving so much, and I usually don't. I'm usually just kind of moving my shoulders a bit, but I was moving so much that when I took out my phone to type in some notes, it wouldn't let me. It said, "Are you driving?" I had to tell my phone I wasn't driving just because of how much I was moving, and it was moving in my pocket. The closer of I Am the Walrus, I don't know if I've heard them play it before, but certainly not at Madison Square Garden. And I read a tweet during set break, I think it was, or maybe it was after the show. Someone wrote, congratulations to everyone whose acid kicked in during I Am the Walrus.
Right. Yeah, that's the perfect time. The angry buzzing cloud of noise, which was great. I'd seen that song once before at Wrigley Field in 2016. And it was cool to see it again. It has been played very often. It was played at the Baker's Dozen. It was played at Vegas in 2021 on Animal Night. And then tonight.
Yeah, and you don't, considering the Beatles' history, you got to think it hasn't been played in arena rock venues that often,
No
considering they
kidding.
were long done with touring.
Yeah.
So it's pretty great, and we're pretty lucky as a fan base to be able to hear a song like that in a live setting. I had the same thought in the mid '90s when they started playing "Getting Away with Me," "A Day in the Life."
Right.
These songs that aren't commonly covered, or covered well at least. So
Exactly.
Set Break, I was thrilled. It sounds like you were. Set 2, you alluded to this, opened with Sample in a Jar, went into Kill Devil Falls, Golden Age, Shade, Sneakin' Sally Through the Alley, Twist, closed with You Enjoy Myself. Wow. And then the encore was a 4-song encore, big time. Wilson, Sanity, David Bowie, Character Zero, very old school.
Mhm.
So how are you feeling leading into the second set when Sample started?
So when Sample started, they've been doing this thing this tour and recently where they open the set like a 5-minute rocker and then go into the big jam. I figured when Sample started, I was like, awesome, we're gonna get a jammed out Sample here, and I could not wait. This is the first one I got to see in person. This is probably the GOAT Sample, I think, at this point. In terms of improvisation, nothing will top the energy and the moment surrounding the Baker's Dozen version, of course. But this was awesome. Just really, really solid improvisation from the band. Page stuck out to me during this one as well. Like, just amazing electric piano work all night from him. It was pretty great. And, again, exploring that major key space to its fullest. It did feel like it could have gone a little bit longer. You know what? One of my probably complaints about this show, which I don't want to call it a complaint, but like,
Right, in quotes, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Is that I felt that some of the songs could have been explored for a little bit longer. Like Kill Devil Falls was really solid too. Great segue into Golden Age. And Golden Age, I felt really was starting to go somewhere. We've been getting a lot of these bliss jams and major key jams, which have been amazing. And I was saying this to someone yesterday. I don't think they're getting stale, but there have been hints of other jam, themes popping up here and there. Like during this Golden Age, they had a brief dip into some darker territory. And, most people would expect Trey to be the one to kind of bring it back into major key, but it was actually Page who brought it back in the Golden Age, which I found was really interesting. And then, Shade, good breather. And then they go for like the fun, more jukeboxy fourth quarter. Sally was amazing. Just the energy in the room during Sally was amazing when they started it. Twist was fun, nothing crazy in a 7-minute version. And then just a solid Yem. Trey's been playing the compositions pretty well this run, as I mentioned earlier. So, always fun to get it. It was actually funny to note during Yem. So for people who pay attention to Trey's guitar gear, he added a second like amp cabinet after Wilmington. And that's taking up like more space. And they haven't played Yem since he added the second cabinet. And so when his tech came to put the trampoline out, he had to kind of like weasel it in to fit. And like it was kind of, Trey had to like stand more to the left of his area just to, and like, I don't know, when he got up to sing, he had like 1 foot on the trampoline because he had to maneuver in place. I just thought that was a funny thing that I noticed.
So those of you going to Saratoga in a couple weeks, keep an eye on where Trey is standing if they play You Enjoy Myself.
Yeah.
But I agree.
If his rig changes again before that.
Right. I agree largely with what you said. Sample, I do agree with you that it's the best version played to this point. I was there at the Baker's Dozen as well. And like you said, that was, for me, at least as a fan, a turning point.
Yeah.
During jam night or jam filled night, when they kept that part of Sample moving, the interlude, before the coda to come back to it. And it was just like, I've never heard anything like this. You could hear it on the soundboard recording. that it's just like the world changes. The world of Phish changes in a way, in a way that you expected at the time, but also didn't expect because you didn't expect it to be in sample, but you expected a lot of jamming that night. For this one, it just kind of like a giant wave that comes at you and doesn't stop. Mm-hmm. And the improvisation in this is really solid. The change into Kill Devil Falls, I know there was a version on this tour. Was it in Syracuse?
I was there.
I haven't heard it. So can you tell me a little bit about it? I know you're making a face right now.
John Fishman puts his foot to the floor and just like drives the jam, trays all over it, like moving from like just a great minor key groove, major key, etc. Unbelievable peak. It's like 19 minutes. You got to listen to it. That one kind of came at the end of like a pretty first set. They started Kill Devil Falls. I was like, great, going to be a solid 8-minute version, maybe closing the set, maybe not. And then it just went out, like it was amazing.
And that's kind of what I was hoping for this version of Kill Devil Falls. Despite my best efforts, I still have expectations and hopes when they start a new song. And even though how many times I say I shouldn't, I still do, despite myself. This version of Kill Devil Falls was good, but like you said at the very top of our conversation, maybe the less flowy. There were parts in this set that I thought could have gone for longer and maybe could have developed a little more, but no, they transitioned into Golden Age. And I don't know if it was Fishman that it felt like there was just a half beat off. I don't know if it was intentional. I don't know if it was just my ears that weren't hearing it. Did you hear anything like that felt a little askew in Golden Age? Or was it just maybe not what I was expecting?
No, there were a couple of like timing hiccups in the show, most notably like the re-entry to Bowie. But no, not off the top of my head, but
okay.
That doesn't mean it's not there. Right. No, that doesn't mean it's not there.
And then Shade, like you said, good breather. I think it's a lot of people's favorite new Trey ballad. A lot of couples, it's the waste of today. People like to lean into each other for this. And then, good jukebox upbeat, dance your face off, end of the set of Sneakin' Sally twist. And you enjoy myself. If nothing particularly memorable to go back and listen to individually, they're all fun songs to listen to. And the end of this show, the encore, the 4-song encore, went beyond my expectations. I thought it was going to be over after Wilson, to be honest. And then Sanity, which was the first song I heard in 3.0 when they came back. I went to, I think it was the third night of Hampton. They opened with Sanity. I always have sentimental connection to this, even though it's the same song each time. So I thought, a Gamehenge song, Insanity, we're here for something special. And then Bowie, which is kind of, forgive this, a deflated balloon in 3.0 or 4.0, wherever we are now, it still holds it together, but doesn't hold up to fans like me, like mine, expectations. But a Character Zero closer, can't really complain about that unless you're just looking for something to pick at. So I like that this show went longer.
Listen, I just want to say about the Character Zero, if anybody at MSG wants to claim that they don't like Character Zero as a show closer, I call bullshit, because there was not a person in the venue who was not screaming the lyrics. Which like every time they play Zero, especially inside an arena, it just blows my mind at the way that people just go nuts for it, because I love it. The energy is amazing. You can tell every time Trey just absolutely loves it. It's rock and roll, baby.
Yeah.
It's a great closer.
Yeah, and that's its place. That it was written to be a set closer. I think I remember reading Trey saying that, he's like, we need a big set closer. What can we do? And it wasn't as simple, I'm sure, as that thought to his pen, but that's kind of its place. And it's not just that it's rock and roll, although it is 100%, but the lights cannot be underestimated with the effect on the crowd that it has as everyone's fist pumping. And we all know after this, we're going to have to go to the subway, to the train, walk down the block, wherever it is, but you leave on such a high. It was so great.
Yeah.
So we had something of a night's sleep. Next day, Wednesday, August 2nd.
Somewhat.
Yeah, something for some of us, more or less. August 2nd, 2023. Set 1. This is night 5. Possum, Gaiuti, Axela Part 2. Energy, Meat Stick, with lots of genuine segues here, by the way. Into Its Ice with a long, extended Blaze On closer. I sat down very happy. Overall, this is not generally my type of set. You used the phrase jukeboxy before. To me, the first half was kind of like that. And it all changed once it went from energy, meat stick, it's ice.
Oh my God. Yeah. Just the segues were phenomenal. I thought the Coyote was played pretty well as well, but yeah, like nothing crazy in the first half of the set. And yeah, and energy just kind of took off. They went into this great jam, and kind of just found their way naturally into meat stick. It felt like, which then, without hesitation, went off into its own jam. And I had tweeted like, "Oh, Trey's teasing it's ice," and then they segued into it, and it worked, and it was great. And it's ice has kind of not gotten a jam really the last few times it's been played, and so last night we got a little bit of it, which was great. But I absolutely love that song, so I will never complain about hearing it. We can all dream about it going the route of the Baker's Dozen It's Ice sometime again, but it's just a lot of fun. The set was amazing, and Blaze On, again, another song that's been shorter as of late, being these, like we've had a bunch of 7-minute set closing versions, I think. And so seeing this one get extended was excellent.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed with a lot of that, especially the It's Ice part. I am a sucker for good segues. That's part of what got me into Phish in the first place. When I was listening to tapes, and I would find a lot of tapes from like 92, 93, 94, because that's where the best quality tapes were, because the venues were small enough that you didn't have to be hooked up to the soundboard, where the audience was still easy to hear. And when they would pull off a lot of segues, as they were at that era, it was like magic. It really was like a magician doing magic tricks where you could see the trick, but you couldn't fully understand it or knew you couldn't do it yourself. So that transition, and It's Ice is a really hard song to play on every instrument.
Oh my God, it's so complex.
So for them to find themselves in it, like you said, Trey played it a few times, and then it was Fishman, which is the common tail. Fishman is the one who usually goes next, and then Mike, like the third or fourth time around, you could hear him do the Benny Hill bass part, and before you knew it, so you saw it coming, but it was still a delight when they got there.
Yeah, and a little bit of foreshadowing with a Frankenstein tease from Paige and Trey in there, which has been noted correctly on Phish.net now.
Good.
But I saw during the first set, I saw that Paige's keytar was sitting on top of a road case behind his rig, which it's not usually sitting out there. Like it's usually there, like in the back, but it's not usually sitting on top of the thing. And I was like, oh, I think we're getting Frankenstein in the encore tonight. Like,
I always wonder about that. I always wonder about like specific parts of their gear that they only use for a single song. Like the other night when Fishman had the handheld ba cymbals for Cracklin' Rosie. He doesn't use those for any other song. And I wonder if there's a roadie who has to put out these instruments every single time, just in case they have the whim to play those songs.
Like there was one MSG run, I think 2018, where Trey had the megaphone sitting on top of his amps the entire run and didn't touch it.
Right. It just has to be there.
Just in case we play Fee.
Yep. So I liked this first set, even though it wasn't entirely, if I had to write up a first set, if I were God, it wouldn't be my particular favorite, but there was nothing I particularly didn't like about it. And especially that transition from energy into meat stick. That's where it all became more in my heart. But set 2.
I want to talk about this so badly.
Yeah, it happened like a little more than 12 hours ago at the time we're talking right now. It hasn't settled.
No, I like woke up this morning and I think I had forgotten about it. And then
it was all a dream.
Then I looked at the show again and I was like, oh my God, I saw Phish play the Island Tour Cavern.
Yeah. And even the fact that we can call it the Island Tour Cavern in 2023 speaks to how magical this band and this run has been. Yeah. It reminded me philosophically of during the Baker's Dozen when they played 1999, because that song was played at the time just once before, right? New Year's Eve 98, for literally that specific date. Like a one time only, we're playing it for this, and then the door is closed. Like if you weren't here for it, you missed your shot. Sorry. And I think this version, this slowed down, funky, awesome Danceable, Island Tour, Cavern was kind of the same. It's like they were playing in such a funky, drenched, wah-wah drenched style at the time in the spring of 1998. It's like, well, this sounds like it was on a whim in 98, and I guess it's been on tape ever since. So that's the closest you're going to get. Not so.
Yeah, it was awesome because Phish from the Road had no idea what it was. They just tweeted set 2 in all caps, no song. Then, so, they started it. I was trying to figure out, like, is it MoMA? Is it whatever? And then they did that first drum break. And I was like, this kind of sounds like the Island Tour Cavern. And then when Trey started singing Cavern, I started screaming and jumping up and down.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I thought it was, occasionally, I think it was also that same New Year's run in 98 on December 29th, before they played 2001, there's this like 8-minute ambient jam, and it's not a song. It's just a weird, awesome, strange ambient jam. And on set lists, it's noted as jam, capital J, like that's the name of the song. I thought that's what they were doing with this Cavern. I thought they just said, let's just start with a funk progression and see where it leads us. Right, of course. It was so much fun.
We've seen the cow funk pop up a couple of times this run, in the theme the other night. Trey was doing it. So I'm hoping maybe it turns into something bigger in the last 2 nights. Maybe in a tweezer.
Fingers crossed all the way. Fingers and toes crossed all the way.
Everything.
Yep. And then so from Cavern into Carini, into Piper, The Well, The Howling, Taste, About to Run, Chalked as Torture, with the encore, as you mentioned just earlier, Frankenstein and Slave to the Traffic Light. So for me, I'll sum it up real quick because I'm more interested in what you think. Carini and Piper to me were really good. I thought Carini had a tremendous amount of energy. That word is probably the most said word of any MSG recap ever, the word energy, naturally. Piper, I was sitting down for a little bit. My feet needed a little bit of break. And I heard The Well from the Man in Philly. Yeah. And I said, what the hell is this? I don't know what it is, but I like it a lot.
Yeah.
And this is my type of Phish, especially new Phish, where it's dark and just ripping and Trey unleashing his inner, like, classic rock shredding. Doesn't matter what's underneath me. I'm just going to fucking kill it on guitar. That's how I interpret The Well. And then The Howling, I didn't even know that there was a change in songs. That's how loud and how smooth that segue was.
Yeah, it was great. The Well, I'll talk about the Carini in a sec, but The Well, while we're on the topic of that, when they debuted it with the trio in June, I was at that show and they started it and a couple of us were like, okay, like it's another Trey, like, hippy dippy, whatever, happy song.
And don't be fooled.
And then the second half started and we were like, oh, like this is awesome. And then so when Phish played it for the first time and everyone was making the same thing, like, oh, it's just another Trey, whatever, and then like those of us who were there were like, give it a few minutes.
Yeah, everyone was running to the bathroom.
Yeah,
everyone was running, and I didn't say it out loud, of course, but I'm like, suckers.
Yeah, like you have no idea.
So what were your thoughts on Carini and Piper?
Yeah, so I mean, the segue from Cavern into Carini was great. Super smooth. I like that they kept the outro Cavern going for a few seconds. Make that nice segue. Random cow funk break in Carini. I'm down with it. It was awesome. But yeah, I feel like I was hoping for Carini to go, a bit bigger. We haven't had a 20-minute jam since Fuego on night 2. So, kind of looking for a more improvisational centerpiece. I feel like the last few nights have been a lot more energy focused, which again, very commonly used word. But I thought this set flowed really well. I think definitely a better second set than Tuesdays. Just in terms of, I tweeted last night, I was like, lighter on the jams, hot on the energy and flow. I felt that they were playing well. The energy, they didn't lose momentum throughout the set. Carini had a great jam. It found its way into Piper pretty nicely. Piper always just rips. The Well stayed pretty contained, but I really like just them kind of exploring that like gnarly outro for a couple of minutes. The Howling is always so much fun. You can tell they love playing it too. It was my first time seeing Taste live, so I was really excited about that. About to Run always rips.
It's my favorite song on the Gun Goes to the Forest.
Yeah, amazing. And then Chalk Dust, nice exclamation point to the set.
Yep.
While a song like that, I was hoping maybe we would get Big Jam out of it this run. Still not going to complain about it being an amazing set closer.
That's the thing. By this point, we have nothing to complain about.
Exactly.
I mean, we never really do. Unless you're a curmudgeon, which I am sometimes, admittedly, and we both know, I'm sure, our share of. But at this point, it's like, oh, they're playing Chalk Dust Torture. Like, they're playing 14 sets in 9 days.
Right.
What is there to complain about? I mean, and About to Run and Chalk Dust Torture, for people who do love Machine Gun Trey, and that, I use the word shredding
Rock
a lot.
God.
Yeah, Rock God Trey. This is it, served on a platter. Mm-hmm. And Frankenstein, I know, is a rarity. It's certainly a treat for everyone. It is, for me at least. I first became aware of it watching Beavis and Butthead when I was 12 and 13. So to hear that riff played with respect, not as a goof, because it is so overdone and well known, is really fun, complete with its not original instruments, but with the instrument that could best express the vibe of the song. And Slave to the Traffic Light to close it. You want to bliss us out? I'm in.
Yeah. Well, and also Trey, said thank you at the end of Frankenstein, and I had taken 2 steps towards the exit after Frankenstein ended, because I was like, great, it's done. And then it felt like Trey was just like, fuck it, let's play Slave. And so they played Slave, and Slave is the best.
Yeah, and the last note I want to make about Slave, is when Trey changed the lyrics to "See the Best City."
Yeah.
Reflected back to when they played Cities on, was it night 1? I think, I can't remember at this point. When they played Cities, and he said, "I found myself a city to live in." So he's really laying it on thick that not only are we in New York, but he's happy to be home. This kind of goes into why I think they're going to have much longer stretches in fewer venues, if not next year, but just taking the long view in the future. I think Trey wants to be home. I think the band wants to be set up and ready to go and not have to pack up that much.
Yeah.
I don't know, just thematically, that's what came to my mind. But any thoughts of the last 2 nights or of the run that we haven't touched on, Ryan? Anything you were dying to say but didn't get the opportunity?
No, I think we pretty much covered anything. It was a hell of a couple of midweek shows. I'm ready for the last 2. I'm sad that there's only 2 left. But it's going to be amazing because we've got 2 more Phish shows. They haven't played Tweezer yet. They haven't played Hood yet. There are a lot of other songs. Obviously,
haven't played Antelope yet.
They haven't played Antelope yet. There's so many songs still on the table. So these 2 nights are going to be awesome. And there's still the rumor of the added production elements that are being brought in by the
wheelchair
band on
section,
Saturday.
that one?
Yeah. So I'm curious to know if what that is and if it's anything, because it could just be like a nothing, but I'm really curious to see what that ends up being.
Well, get your tinfoil hats ready.
Oh, I never took it off. That's the nature of being a Phish fan.
Of course. Well, Ryan, thank you for taking time on your day off, it should be noted, to come chat for a short while just to tell us and tell your thoughts about the last 2 nights. Before we go, can you give everyone a reminder again of where they can hear you, read you, where they can find Ryan Storm online and on podcasts?
Thank you. Yeah, the best place to get updates on everything I do is subscribing to my email list on ryanstorm.substack.com. You can listen to my podcast and part of the Osiris Network, Storm Sound, Phish, Goose, Snarky Puppy, all that good stuff. And follow me on social media at @Rye_Storm.
Yeah, can't forget the underscore.
And at Stormy Podcast.
All right, Ryan, thank you again so much. Enjoy the last 2 nights and your day off today.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thanks for listening, everybody. That is it for the recap of the Tuesday and Wednesday night show, nights 4 and 5 of this 7-show MSG run. I'd very much like to thank Ryan Storm for being game to join me today to recap the Tuesday and Wednesday night, and thank you, of course, for listening. The goal is to have another recap for the end of the run, the upcoming Friday and Saturday night run, as long as I can get all my stuff together and wake up in a time that makes it easy enough to release a podcast on the same day. Hopefully I can make that happen. But regardless, if you haven't listened to part one, just scroll down a little bit. I had a recap of the first weekend of the Phish shows with the two guys, Skinny and JW from the Stub Me Down podcast, friends of the pod. Today is with Ryan Storm, and next week, to be determined. But again, thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time on Attendance Bias.